Okay, thank you everyone for coming this evening. We are really pleased to have Peter Mandel here. He is an adventure traveler who has written for many publications, including National Geographic. And this evening he is going to be talking, his talk is called Going to Extremes. So we're going to see some places that people do not generally go to. And I think for those of us who are still sort of landlocked and not going anywhere, this is really going to be a treat. I hope you all can sit back and enjoy it. And Peter, I'm going to leave this to you. I thank you very much for coming, and I thank all the rest of you for coming. Also want to thank the Friends of the Library. They make this possible, and we couldn't do it without them. So Peter, are you there? I'm not sure he is. Let's see, Peter, can everyone else hear me? Yeah, okay, people can hear me. So I'm not sure if he stepped away for a second.
Hold on. No, I'm here.
Okay.
Do you hear me now?
Yes, I think you might have
Oh,
been.
good. Okay.
I think you might have been.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Nancy, and thanks to the library and the Friends of the Library, and much appreciate people joining me for a little virtual travel. You don't need to dress in fleece or heavy wool, but we are gonna sort of whipsaw from some very cold places to some very warm places, and I promise the sun will be out in some of these photos. So if you're like, if you guys are like Providence, where my wife and I live, it's been a long, dreary stretch. A couple of things, I've been doing this talk or similar for, oh boy, about a decade. And I welcome people piping up with, if you recognize a place, or if you have a question, or you're excited about it, or comment. So go ahead and don't worry about waiting to the end to ask questions. Okay, is that okay with you, Nancy? Oh, now I can't hear you.
That's unusual, and certainly I can unmute everyone if you like.
That's fine with me.
Okay,
so if you're comfortable with that, just because I like the interaction, and I usually people are really polite about this, so let's give it a shot, shall we?
Absolutely, that's perfect. Thank you.
Okay, in a nutshell, what you're seeing here, I hope you can see it, is what we're going to visit Antarctica at a little later on. What you're seeing here is it's a big, large, very peaceful animal here. Anyone know what we're looking at here on the lower right? It's an elephant seal. People have seen seals at the zoo. Has anyone seen, this is a typical seal in Antarctica. Anyone ever seen an elephant seal? No, okay, I'm glad to hear it. So let's launch into this. Okay, let me see how I can progress this. Inevitable, there's gonna be some issue. There we go. As I warned you, ice. This is, it's not Alaska. Has anyone on your travels been somewhere where you've seen lots and lots of ice, lots and lots of glaciers? May not be your thing, but I find glaciers very beautiful in their own way. And what we are looking at here is, this is not yet Antarctica. We are in the high Arctic. And oops, that's out of order. This is a writing trip where I did a story for the Boston Globe. I'm hearing birds somewhere, which is a welcome sound. Maybe your cats, Nancy, are going after some birds.
Oh, goodness, I hope not.
Okay. We have two, and you may see Maisie or Cecil pass by. But this was a writing trip some years back for the Boston Globe. And this is the ship that I sailed on. And it is, does it look like a typical cruise ship?
No.
Mm-mm.
I do not think it does. In fact, it's kind of rusty down the bottom. And it is, in fact, this is a converted Russian icebreaker. It's called the Kapitan Klebnikov, and a very clever travel company named Quark Expeditions, which actually has one of its offices is in Connecticut. Instead of building its own cruise ships or lease it, which are cruise ships are, as you might imagine, very expensive proposition. What Quark does, it specializes in adventure cruising. And in this case, when it comes to the Arctic and Antarctica, Quark has arranged to lease and adapt working Russian icebreakers, which is an experience, I will tell you. Just looking at this photo, where do you guess we passengers probably slept? Did we sleep here? Probably not. Did we sleep down here? Luckily, no. See this big box?
Mm-hmm.
This is an important addition to the ship. Quark improved this area because you can see the little portholes here. This is where we passengers spent our days. We're not talking super luxury, but this was a cruise called the High Arctic and Greenland, and it was an experience like very few I've had, including the captain was willing to take us as far north as he could go, which was an experience. We all got maps of the latitude and longitude of our final final destination. And has anyone ever seen seawater turn to slush?
Wow.
I wouldn't have been able to tell you that happened. It does before it turns to ice. Salt water can turn slushy. And here, a bunch of us passengers, we are lined up on the deck, which we did daily. Notice, can everyone see the cursor here?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay.
Notice everyone's kind of dressed up in this bright yellow parka here with a little patch. So the cruise line, Quark, outfits every passenger with this super warm parka, and it has its distinctive bright yellow color. Any thoughts about why? These are expensive parkas, and cruise lines are in business to make money like any other company. Why would a cruise line spring for free parkas for all the passengers aboard?
In case they go overboard.
That's one one big reason. In case we happen to, would we last very long in Arctic waters?
No.
We would not. And this optic yellow can hurt, can it? Even if sometimes cruise passengers get left behind, believe it or not, by cruise ships, and you probably don't want to be left behind with a polar bear or a walrus. So here we are lined up, a bunch of us, ready to be helicoptered around to see glaciers and walruses. One of the fun parts of this cruise was our helicopter was in very old Soviet era Aeroflot helicopter. And if you've ever traveled to Russia, Aeroflot does not have the world's best reputation for safety. And this thing rattled and this thing banged, and we all survived it. And one of the most popular destinations on this cruise was Greenland. Anyone Anyone ever visit Greenland?
Mm-mm.
No, that's a lot of folks are now traveling to Iceland. Anyone do that?
Yes.
All right. Okay. You probably have heard the old adage, Iceland's green and Greenland's icy. Okay. Very true. And here we are. This is a town called Kanak in Greenland. And what are these white objects out here in the bay?
Icebergs.
Icebergs. So we thought, well, a bunch of us passengers, when you're on an adventure cruise, you don't just stay on your ship. You're constantly either flying around by helicopter or you are motoring around on rubber Zodiac boats, inflatable rubber motorboats that you may have traveled on in Milford. But we felt like lunch. So we got a recommendation at the top of the only hill in Kanak, Greenland, for the Polar Grill. So up we hiked. Here it is. The Polar Grill looks good, doesn't it? 3-star Michelin. Not really. But the sign, when we get close to that sign, we were quite disappointed to find it said closed for the season.
Oh,
And we're like, okay, well, what is the high season around here, huh? Okay, so that's some cold for you. And here we are, no longer, believe it or not, no longer on my adventure cruise, but I did a story, in this case for the Baltimore Sun, on visiting an area in northern Manitoba, Canada, where you can see polar bears in the wild. So essentially, it's a polar bear safari. Has anyone considered that? It doesn't come up in conversation a lot, in cocktail parties, but we all see polar bears at the zoo. But should you be interested, it's not a particularly expensive trip. You fly to a little tiny town on the edge of, in the fall, on the edge of frozen Hudson Bay, or quickly freezing Hudson Bay. It's called Churchill, Manitoba. And polar bears are everywhere around this town all the time. Why? Anyone know where and how polar bears hunt? Polar bears hunt on the ice. They're very, very good swimmers, very good. If you've ever seen them underwater at the zoo, you'll be amazed at how good they are. But so the polar bears gather every fall, waiting for the ice to freeze in the town of Churchill. This is, a mother and a growing up cub. And the cool thing is you get to spend a week if you book it in advance, you get to spend a week on a tundra train. Okay. I don't know if you're like me and you like trains. This is unlike any train you've probably been on, but this is the caboose. A bunch of us passengers. I'm not actually sure how I took this shot, come to think of it. There was also sort of a tundra buggy, so I'm probably in the buggy. Now, here we are. Notice that the tundra train, I should tell you, has a whole bunch of different cars. It's got a dining car. It's got a lounge car. It's got bunk cars where we had big wood stove attempting to keep us warm. And how come? Well, it's not a train on tracks. This is a train that's on ATV tires. So it can roam around this frozen tundra. How come it's raised up so high? For good viewing? Yeah. But what other reason would there be, perhaps, to keep passengers kind of a little bit higher than a regular Amtrak train?
Maybe to keep the wildlife away?
Well, yeah, exactly. Okay. Keep the wildlife, notably in this case. We did see some cool stuff like snowy owls and Arctic foxes. they weren't of concern, but polar bears themselves, oops, this is me, we'll come back to that. Polar bears themselves, they look sometimes really cute, don't they? Don't they look kind of like they, could be they are on greeting cards and stuff. Are they at all dangerous?
Yeah.
Heck yes, they're dangerous. One of the most dangerous carnivores for man. Notice the tire treads of the tundra buggy here. And among the many cool experiences, the chef would stir up like a fish stew. Not for us, it was a really, really smelly fish stew. And these guys, these are friendly polar bears, would come right up to the tundra train, and some of them would even lick. We had gratings, you know how trains have gratings between the cars. You had the unparalleled experience of having a polar bear lick the grating right under your feet. And I should add this female right here, we had of course, bath and shower car. This female, we heard one morning, we heard a scream from the from the shower car, and you would just sort of imagine, would you not, that tundra buggies would drain their shower water into a tank or something? That's what I would have thought. Well, guess what? A woman passenger was looking down in the drain of her shower and noticed this particular bear was drinking the shower water. I'm sorry if that grosses you out, but I have to report it as it is. Okay, so this is a young me in town, okay, in the town of Churchill, because I really wanted a shot with a sign. You know how it is when you're traveling, you really want a shot with a sign that says something about an exotic animal. And this sign, as you may be able to see, says polar bear alert, stop, etc., danger. The town lives with polar bears all the time, so they don't care about this. This happened to be at the town dump. This one sign, the one sign available. Why do you think that sign would be at the town dump?
Scavengers.
I didn't hear that, sorry.
They're scavengers.
You got it. Polar bears are like most other animals. If they can get food easily by, rooting through garbage and stuff, they'll do it. And the dump is where they've had, this town at least has had more troublesome bears than anywhere else. When a bear has caused problems or harmed a human, they do not kill the bear. They're used to these bears. What they do, they have a large animal vet who shoots the bear with a huge dose of tranquilizers. And I'm here to tell you, I actually saw them. Wish I had a shot of it. Helicoptering a tranquilized polar bear in a net. They helicopter him 20 miles from town. What do we think happens then? After the bear wakes up, what happens?
Comes back to town.
Comes right back. So this is how the story turned out. The first piece here from this ran in the Boston Globe. So here's just, a little window on travel writing. So, that was sometimes you write a story, you have an assignment. Sometimes you're fortunate in that the story gets good placement in a newspaper or magazine. In this case, I was lucky. The editor commissioned a nice piece of art and put it on the front page. And it was also good for me because I got paid a little bit more. So it's not travel writing isn't a way to make a great living. So that was a happy moment. Any questions about the bears?
I had heard that the children in Churchill are not allowed to dress up as ghosts on Halloween.
Are you telling me this? Really?
Really, I read this, yes. Because
no kidding, because
they would look like polar bears.
Oh my gosh, that is a great fact.
Okay, you can have it.
Is it okay if I steal your fact for future use? Who's saying this? I can't tell.
Oh, Evelyn, Daphne.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Who knew? And you would think the polar bears would be delighted, right?
Yeah.
Look, it's a cute little ghost. Boy, that is a great. Were you up in Churchill, Emily?
No, I've never been.
Guess not.
No.
All right. So we are switching gears dramatically here. We are warm, thank goodness. Okay. And we are suddenly at one of the world's great rivers. It's in the Western Hemisphere. It's in South America. Has anyone been down to the Amazon at any
Yep.
point?
I have.
Okay. Another not super expensive trip. A lot of different adventure providers, many that, like International Expeditions and many others that are well known, offer riverboat cruises down the Amazon and its wilder sister, the Rio Negro, okay, in Brazil. And I cannot recommend this enough for sheer wonderment. Is it just every day, of course, it's the jungle. Every day it rains. You see rainbows, of course. And can everyone see the cursor circling a boat up in the upper left-hand corner? Everyone see that?
Mm-hmm.
Unless somebody screams, I'm going to assume you do. This was our beautifully made, locally made riverboat, the Tucano. It started from the jungle town of Manaus, which actually had a terrible problem with COVID, terrible. A very town full of really kind, good people. And so you're on this locally made, beautifully crafted riverboat for a week. It has air conditioning, good meals, and you are motorboated constantly to shore to walk around in the jungle, meet the locals, etc. This is a local craft. And I ask this at every talk I give, judging by just looking at it. Can you guess what it's used for?
Church.
It's a church. Very good. See, I do this talk at a lot of different venues. So I actually gave this talk at a Catholic school, and I thought, well, they're going to be all over this. What I got back was, oh, radio broadcasting. But no, it's a church. Now, why would a church be on the water?
To reach more people?
Bingo. Well said. Everything on the Rio Negro and the Amazon moves by water. It's like a river version, a jungle version of Venice. If you haven't been to Venice, you gotta go. Okay,
Yeah.
It's super cool. Everything operates just like a regular city, but it operates by water. Okay, all deliveries, everything. So this is true here on the Amazon, and here's a typical town. The locals, local Amazonians live. Beautiful colors. How come their houses are raised up like this?
Snakes?
Well, yes, that's good. Excellent. That's definitely a problem. Snakes and bugs and things. There's another reason too.
Flooding.
Flooding.
Yeah, flooding at least twice a year, sometimes more. You've got, floods that go pouring through here. By the way, if you want to read a great novel about this part of the world, I don't know if you're familiar with Ann Patchett, but one of her books is called State of Wonder. It's a delight.
Awesome.
Sorry?
I just read it recently. It's
Oh,
awesome.
did you like it?
Yes.
It's such a cool book. She's brilliant. But
Yes.
anyway, so it really captures this area better than I can. These are local girls selling necklaces. And of course, I thought, well, I'm going to buy one of these for my wife. And I realized, once I bought it, I started looking at these little, what looked like beads. And I realized these are sort of speckled. I thought, well, these weren't rocks. They weren't beads. What were they? Can anyone guess?
Huh.
Bugs.
Say it again.
Bugs.
eggs.
Bugs. Yeah, you're the one who's read State of Wonder. Yep. They do look like shells of beetles, but what they turned out to be are rubber tree nuts. Okay.
Oh,
One of the cool things about walking around in the jungle, which you get to do on this trip and which I wrote about, you're constantly passing rubber trees, and you can take your pocket knife and cut into the bark of the tree, and rubber trees bleed, of course, white rubber, which rubber trees had to be harvested before we came up with synthetics. I think in World War I, everything's still made from natural rubber. So, what's going on here?
Ooh,
What kind of fish do we think we have here?
piranha.
It's a piranha,
Yep.
meaning, of course. And what could be more cool than being able, we all got to fish for piranha using, see these sticks? That's somebody's fishing rod. And for bait, we use, drum roll, we use pieces of steak from last night's dinner. And one woman, I swear to you, from somewhere in Massachusetts who'd never fished before, caught 28 piranha.
Oh my gosh.
Everyone, these piranha, the water, of course, is just like on Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom. The water is like boiling and bubbling with piranha. And the chef on board was kind enough to, when we brought in our catch, to fry them up. Do they look like they taste good?
No.
They did not taste good. They're very very bony fish.
Yeah.
But you gotta look at the eye of this thing. Look at the teeth. I mean, the guy, he's got excellent set of choppers.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we're staying hot here. We're staying in warm places. We're gonna do a little tour of Islamic countries. Has anyone been to or have an interest in going to Jordan by any chance? Jordan is relatively quite a relatively stable and friendly ally of the United States, and even has a peace treaty with Israel. And it has one of the world's great sites in Jordan. Anyone ever hear of Petra?
mhm.
Petra, Jordan. It's an ancient city that has, due to the conditions of desert, you're seeing a little bit of the external part of Petra here. But due to the dry conditions and being buried under a bunch of sand, Petra has been preserved. So you walk through these, to get in there, you have to walk about 3 miles through this really beautiful, really stunning, and really echoey canyon until you finally get close to the red, beautiful, ancient city of Petra. And this is when we first sighted it. This is a piece I did for the Washington Post, and this intrepid explorer is my wife, Kathy. I have no idea where she got the pith helmet. I've never seen it since. I don't remember her having a pith helmet, but the photo kind of captured in a way that the beautiful bright glow when you come out of this dark cavern, quite stunning. Moving on to another magical country to visit. Has anyone been to Morocco?
I've been.
You have?
Yep.
What did you think?
It was my favorite place.
Oh, fantastic. Bravo. I'm not sure who's speaking. Who is that, please?
Evelyn.
Okay. So that's how my wife and I feel. It has, in one place, it has like all of, it has like a lot of European exoticism, plus you've got this, stunning dash of the Middle East and the stunning part of the coast of Africa where it's located. And the architecture is great. The food is great. The people are nice. Okay. Very kind people. This is a local They have many different ethnic groups. This is a guy who happens to be wearing his traditional cloak with hood. And I love the fact, that they still had phone booth and sort of mixture of old world and new. This is a shot from, I wonder if I can blow these up more. Is that helping? No.
That's smaller.
Yeah. Nope. Anyway, is that better?
A little bit.
Whatever.
That's
Okay.
good.
So this is just a random view of the Atlas Mountains from Marrakesh. Both this and the previous picture were in the town of Marrakesh, which is, it's a good place to sort of start your Moroccan expedition, whether or not you like Crosby, Stills, and Nash and remember that classic song. But it's got everything you look for, including beautiful little tight market streets. This is my wife, Kathy, and our friend, Martha. And if you wish, you get to stay in ancient, a lot of these ancient dwellings have been converted into beautiful hotels called riads. And they have just exotic and stunning roof gardens where you dine and you get to hear, for me, one of the most exotic sounds of travel is the sound of hearing the call to worship in a Muslim country. It is both chilling and moving, and you feel like you're in a movie. So I would recommend it. Just an example of beautiful architecture there. For photographers, you can't beat it. This is just a random alley. I'm a photographer and I sell, when I can, my photographs as well as my articles. Here's a case where the lighting appealed to me. If you like taking pictures, this glow, and sometimes we photographers get lucky. And here's a case where I got lucky and somebody's foot happened to be in here. Just a random alley in Marrakesh.
Was this something you did on your own or was this a tour?
Good question. I've gone twice to Morocco, one on assignment where I was with a group of other writers who were being taken there by the Moroccan Tourist Board. We had to show, of course, we had assignments, from magazines and newspapers, but I liked it so much. And you notice my wife is in some of these pictures. We went back with our friends, Kevin and Martha, and the way we did it, because we like to explore on our own, but we had a guide, okay, who had a van, it worked out really well. He was really trustworthy and nice and was able to drive us from city to city. And then we would get local guides in each place, like Fez and Asuria. This is a bit of a switched track here. We're still in Islam. We're at one of the world's most popular destinations. Where do we think we are?
India? No.
What are we looking at down there?
Egypt.
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 Yeah, we're in Egypt. And this, of course, the pyramid, this is the pyramid of, it's either Giza or Giza, and depending on who you talk to. And this is a woman on our tour who just, if you visit the pyramids and the Sphinx outside of Cairo, you will be, Egyptians are very nice people, but they definitely are eager salespeople, okay? And they're constantly, pushing you to do rides. Has anyone ever ridden a camel?
Yep.
It rather, I would say, uncomfortable. Like being on a boat in a stormy sea. And I would say the worst part of it is when you first get aboard, the camel is kneeling on his or her front legs are bent and his head is down. So you get on and you're never warned properly by the guides, but they lurch up in the air and you really have to be holding on tight. Which of course nobody ever is. I was lucky enough because I had a writing assignment, to be able to go down the Nile on their river boats, including one I was on was quite a luxurious one run by Abercrombie and Kent. If you've heard of this, this is a old style but very nice tour company that's been a British, staple for grand tours for a couple of centuries. But it was a lovely experience. This is Karnak Temple in down the Nile, and nothing I can do can capture the sheer size and the stunning beauty of the temples that you see. Much more powerful in many ways than seeing the pyramids, which pyramids are surrounded by so much that isn't ancient, is not ancient. If you get away from the pyramids, you're actually seeing more ancient Egypt. Questions? Last bit of Islam here. I want to try to get it back to black here. How do I do that? There we go. This is another of the world's great cities to visit. Don't be afraid. Has anyone been to Istanbul?
Yes,
Oh, great. Okay, is that Emily again?
Evelyn,
Okay, you've been everywhere.
I have.
You're like you're like Johnny Cash. He was everywhere.
All 7 continents and about 60 countries.
Sorry?
All 7 continents and about 60
Yeah.
countries.
But so this Istanbul is like it's like a Paris, and it's a bridge between Asia and Europe. So it's more difficult now than it was 10 years ago when Kathy and I were there, but it's a very beautiful city with hills, extraordinary food, and of course mosques like this one. It's going through harder times, Turkey is now. So before we're launching quickly, I know this is jarring, this fast travel, but there's so many photos to get through. Anyone have questions about what we've seen so far? Okay. Where we are now, I came up with a particular, when you're pitching editors about travel, sometimes they've got an idea for you. Sometimes I had an idea for them. My idea here was to do a piece about Africa at its wettest and at its driest. This is a Washington Post travel piece. And so I got an editor on board, was able to get flights and accommodations, and also luckily in this case, was able to get my wife she was able to come along. We both loved it. This is about the wettest part. This is the Zambezi River in Zambia, and it runs to a very famous site, which you'll see in a minute. This is, who knows what kind of animal this is?
Baboon?
It's a baboon. It's a baboon, and this is the parking lot for the very famous site you're about to see in a minute. And this particular baboon was a bit like the polar bears in that he was scavenging. I'd like to say he was drinking from a natural spring. This guy was actually drinking Fanta orange soda that somebody had spilled here in the parking lot, but that allowed me to get some good shots. Notice people will say a monkey's paws, won't they? Look at, what are you seeing there?
A hand.
Okay, so someday I'm going to take this show to Oklahoma, and there's some, I don't know, museum or something about nothing against creationism, but I would just love to see what folks who disbelieve in evolution might say about the hands here. Anyway, here's the famous site. This is, anyone want to guess?
Victoria Falls?
Yeah, this is Victoria Falls during a sort of a dry part of the year. It is really one of the world's great waterfalls. And on one side is Zambia, and on the other side is Zimbabwe. Some tour groups actually were allowed to, we didn't get to do this. Some tour groups were allowed to swim around in a pond up here at the top. I asked my guide, well, how come we're not allowed to do that? And he said, well, take a look. And the safety mechanism apparently was having local guys tread water here to prevent the tourists from going over the falls. So maybe our guide was wise.
We got to do it. I was out with Smart Tours.
Oh, you got to do it. You got to swim around.
I didn't. The younger set did.
Okay. How were those guys treading water? Did they know how to? They look like they could swim.
It worked for them. Yes.
Excellent. It's amazing. They must have had to take swimming lessons. So here's just an inside page of how this piece ended up in the Washington Post. You can see the falls here, zebras in a national park, a boat, just to give you a sense. So Africa, from its wettest to its driest, to find some of this isn't the driest, but it's an interesting dry place in Africa that I wrote about for the same piece. We are here, my wife and I are at the last place on earth where white lions roam freely. It's called Sanbona Nature Preserve. Anyone ever go there?
Mm.
Many people who visit South Africa go to Kruger National Park. This is a smaller park.
That was Kruger.
Local wildlife. This is Kathy, my wife, and two people who happen to be in our tour group. Notice we're at having a wine break here. I include this to show that, hey, good tour companies, as some of you know, are really good at planning stops where you have some snacks and have some wine, so it's not all rough going. Now, we didn't know these ladies, but notice how they're dressed. Any of their articles of clothing that our guide was actually very concerned with one of the women's article of clothing. Can you guess which one? Wasn't my wife. But it was one of these two.
The leopard. Yeah, the leopard.
Well, this is actually, you would think that, wouldn't you? But this turned out, he didn't even know what print this was. This is like a South American jaguar print, okay?
Oh.
He didn't even recognize it. But what would be worrisome about this?
She would look like prey.
She looked like prey, exactly.
Yes.
She looked like a zebra, okay? And when you're out in a safari vehicle in search of white lions, do you want to look like a zebra?
No.
So anyway, he was going to make her take it off. Then he thought, well, maybe you better not do that. As those of you who've been to Africa or on safari know that some of the coolest parts of it are nighttime game drives, because of course animals come out when everything gets cooler. Here we are in our safari vehicle at Sanbona, looking. Hours go by. We are desperate to see the one of the world's last remaining white lions. Just when we're about to give up, the headlights caught this lady, and so of course we were thrilled. Now, if you have cats, and Kathy and I do, you notice some things that are different in terms of relative size on this large female lion to the way they might look on your cat.
Pause.
Very good. Okay. I think that's something that we all notice. The paws are huge.
Yeah.
Huge. Even the ears are a bit different, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
A bit rounded. I'm sure there's some fancy breed of cat that has rounded ears, but but otherwise it is quite stunning if you like cats, big and little, how similar the big guys and the big women, female cats, are to the little guys. Okay. Okay, a bit of a detour into aviation, flying, which I did a series of stories on trying to get behind the scenes, what goes on in the cockpit, what goes on in commercial flight. Took me as a young me with patting my an Airbus jet here. It took a long time to set this story up. Boston Globe editor said I could do it if I could somehow get behind the scenes. But as we all know, after 9/11, and this was after 9/11, nobody was allowed up in the cockpit. Cockpit doors were fortified, etc. Every airline turned me down except for, has anyone ever flown Frontier Airlines?
Mhm.
The nice folks at Frontier said, we've got an idea. We wouldn't mind some publicity in the Boston Globe. Why don't you train like a pilot trains on a simulator, and then you can fly to Germany with a flight crew, and then you can fly back in the cockpit of a brand new Airbus jet that Frontier Airlines was taking delivery of. So this is why I'm able to pat this jet. It's brand new, and it's ready for us to fly back. You know, there were a bunch of pilots on our trip. There were some flight attendants, and then there was me covering it. And it's almost impossible to capture what it's like. I'm behind the pilot here, the co-pilot's here. I'm in the jump seat, and among many other, so I got to, you know, just crane my neck and watch the flight from up front. Among many bizarre and cool things, when you first are riding in a cockpit, the pilot asks you a couple of interesting questions. He says, well, here's what you have to do if the plane goes down and both pilot and co-pilot become, quote, stiff and motionless. I'm like, oh, okay, stiff and motionless. What do I do? So they show me a length of rope, and I'm not making this up, and a pickaxe. And I'm like, well, can you help me here? Like, what am I supposed to do with this stuff? And the guy said, well, look where we are. We're in the cockpit. This is pretty high up here. You're going to have to, you know, crack the window with your pickaxe, and you're going to have to rappel down from the cockpit if you need to. Luckily, luckily I didn't have to do that, but it was an interesting moment. Another piece I did, has anyone ever flown on a private jet? I certainly hadn't, not on a writer's.
I have.
You had?
Yeah, a friend of mine owned one.
Wow, this is incredible. Okay, so your experience may have been better or different or the same as mine, but did you have the two guys welcome you aboard like this?
No, but they had wine and dining for us. It was delightful.
Oh, yeah, I know. So it was stunning to have a little champagne and snacks and everything. Where did you fly to?
No, it wasn't very far. It was only to Nantucket.
Oh, that counts. That counts. So anyway, because I had an assignment, I got to do this, and you know, a couple of things surprised me. Of course, I had to take this shot of leg room. You know how it is, a bragging shot here, and a couple of things shocked me. Like, first of all, of course, they ask your weight. Okay, I'm like, well, gee, what does that have to do with anything? Secondly, I don't know how it was for the person who's on this thread who flew, but they didn't make me wear my seatbelt on takeoff or landing. Did you have to?
Well, I chose to.
Okay,
And
me too.
in regards to the weight, they seated us according to our weight to balance it.
Yeah, makes sense to me. But but like I was a little shocked. I'm like, don't you want me to wear my seatbelt? And they're like, no, we don't care. Anyway, so here's here are some of those snacks that we've been bragging about, and champagne and all of that. And I was also a little shocked that I could waltz around, come up to the cockpit and talk to those guys. Since I grew up in New York City, in Chelsea, I asked the guys just to see what they would say. I grew up in an apartment building on 7th Avenue and 16th Street in Chelsea in New York. So I asked, it's still there. So I asked the pilot, could he circle my apartment building so I could have a good look at it and see what it's like now? And he just looks at me. He said, well, I can radio that into the tower at JFK. I said, would you? So I got to hear the tower, the control tower saying, negative, not permitted, whatever. So just to finish this sequence, this is my late dad, Paul Mandel, who I think I have my travel writing genes from him. He was a staff writer and an editor for Life magazine back in the 60s, and was lucky enough to cover the Mercury and Gemini space shots, including Glenn orbiting the Earth and all of that. So one of his stories for Life was he got to test out for NASA. He got to be the writer testing out a prototype Apollo space capsule. So there he is, and there he is with the glasses, testing, and they're testing out, early versions of Houston communication with astronauts, etc. Any questions before we move on? Okay. I'm moving quickly because I know we have limited time, and I don't want to shortchange you. But here we are in a part of Africa that not a lot of tourists visit. Has anyone been to Uganda? This is a well-traveled group, but nobody yet. Uganda, I was interested in, got a Washington Post assignment because it's new to safaris, okay? So it still hadn't put up all the fences yet and all the guards with guns, okay? So was when I went about 8 years ago, the closest you could get to animals in the wild. These are local. They've had some political troubles in Uganda, but people are really friendly, the actual locals. These are kids, gotta love those school uniforms, right?
Yeah.
High visibility. So our first stop in Uganda was a white rhino sanctuary, where the rhinos just roam around and you roam around with them, which wouldn't happen in Kenya. You gotta love, I'm a guy who always likes to photograph signs. You just gotta love this one. It's a rhino sanctuary. And you gotta love that they have a beware of the rhino sign. Kind of like goes without saying, doesn't it? So here we are, a bunch of journalists, some of us photojournalists, out in this plain field. And I would have thought before we went out, can rhinos hurt you?
Oh, I bet.
Oh, they can hurt you very badly.
Yeah.
They've got a very sharp horn, and they've got a very cranky disposition. And I thought, well, there would be several guards walking with guns. What we had was one really short young man. I can still remember his name. His name was Opio Raymond, and Opio, very friendly. He weighed about 90 pounds. He didn't carry any weapons. And when we were walking around, and one of the writers asked, what should we do, Opio, if we're charged? And he thought about that for a minute. He thought about it, and he said, finally, you should climb a tree. And so then we look around, and I hope you believe me when I say this is the only tree about 20 miles.
Yeah.
I've never seen a group of human beings move more quickly towards a single tree in my life. Here's the lodge we stayed at. called Para Lodge, and another great sign, one of my favorites, showing a hippo. Caution, wild animals. One of the most exciting things about staying in Para Lodge is the sight and sound of wild animals all around you. However, please remember, all these animals really are wild. It would be most unwise to approach them closely, feed, or tease them. Why is that sign there? I asked at the desk, and I heard a little story from the desk clerk. An Australian tourist had decided, after a few Foster's loggers, had decided to try to ride a hippopotamus. Now, does that sound like a good idea? Why not? I mean, look how they're a little bit chunky. Maybe they have a few extra pounds, right? What can they do to you? Any thoughts?
Well, they can,
Brush you.
yeah.
I
they
don't know
can
if
sink you. They can buck you off and then.
well, he was lucky. He got caught under the hippo, but they were able to extract him.
Oh,
As it turns out, okay, we've all seen that greeting card or poster with a hippo yawning, and you see broken teeth, right? I always thought, well, these guys are harmless. They have molars. What can they do? When I first went to Africa, I had a Swiss guide, and the only animal he was concerned with us getting near was the hippo. He wasn't concerned about lions. He wasn't concerned about elephants. Somebody asked Peter, the Swiss guide, what could a hippo do to you? He whipped around and he said, he will bite you in half.
oh,
And it turns out, if you look it up, hippos kill more humans in Africa than any other animal by far. It's surprising. And if you walk by a river, apparently they see this riverbank area as their turf. So you're advised, especially stay away from baby hippos, because mama hippos are not happy about it. That guy looks actually kind of tough, doesn't he?
mhm.
This is a shot from the Nile River, which goes through Uganda, actually. And so we're taking a little tour boat to visit up close and personal. This is off the river. This is out of order. But sometimes Africa is quite a magical place, in that sometimes you get to see, several different species together. It's almost a feeling of being in a Garden of Eden like setting. If you love animals, and my wife and I do very much, you almost get a feeling of, wow, I'm here in their space instead of them being in ours. And these are different kinds of antelope and gemsbok with elephants in the background. One area in the jungle looking for chimpanzees, the Ugandan government, for some reason that I don't understand, insisted on sending soldiers with loaded guns with us. This is the only time they did that. And I think this guy in particular had never seen a picture of himself before. So here's a travel journalist showing this guy a picture of himself, which he doesn't look too thrilled. From the river, again, looking at, doesn't it sort of look like these elephants are sharing a secret? Elephants, as we know, are very intelligent, social animals. I'm sure you know this. Many times they have funerals services when an elephant dies. They are, stunningly smart and sociable. We're in neighboring Kenya now. And this is not a white line. This is a regular tawny line. But if you've been to Africa, and it sounds like some of you have, it's much harder to find and see male lions than female. Any theories about why? Well, in part, it's because we guys are lazy, including the male lions, and they're often sleeping. The female lions, just like a lot of lady cats, do a lot of the hunting, and they do it in packs. So that's another reason. I don't use a telephoto, so we are in our safari vehicle as close to this gentleman as he looks here, about, about 11 feet away. And he never once met our gaze, never once bothered to look at a safari vehicle. He was so used to seeing them, and his reaction, here was his reaction. Thrilled, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Trying to get him back. Okay. So in Kenya, one of the cool things there is you can visit traditional villages. This guy is a member of a very famous tribe. Anyone want to guess?
Maasai.
Very good. Sounds like you've been. He's
Yep.
a Maasai warrior. Maybe you can answer this. What makes a Maasai family a wealthy family? It's not cash.
Oh, there are a number of cows.
Bravo. You could give this talk. But yes, the number of cattle, head of cattle, determines it. And maybe you know the answer to this. When a young Maasai warrior is courting the ladies, looking for a wife, there's something, and it's clean, okay, I swear it's clean. There's something the young man does to impress the ladies. Do you know what that is? Jumping, very good. Jumping from a standing position. And wish I had a shot. I can't find my photo, but it sounds like an easy thing to do. But when you're a kid, you do this a lot. As a grown-up, it's like you don't do it as much as you used to do. And these guys can really get air. They are amazing. This is his wife, who must have been impressed by his jumping skills, and their son. Gotta love I love the colors of her costume. And still in Kenya, what animal are we looking at here?
Leopard.
Sorry?
Leopard?
It's not a leopard. They look like leopards. These are smaller than leopards, and they're known for something. They're famous for being the fastest land animal on Earth.
Cheetah.
Impala?
These are cheetah. And one of the things, my wife, I think, pointed this out, just capturing these two cheetah brothers here. Does this remind, if anyone interested in paintings or art at all, does this remind you of a famous New England painting in any way?
Christine.
Wyatt?
Christine.
Wyatt.
It's Brav. Oh, what a treat this group is. Andrew Wyatt's
Yep. Wyatt.
painting, Christina's World. If
Yep.
you're not familiar with it, look it up. And it's like a girl with a print dress on a hillside with a barn at the top. And so this is the cheetah version. And here the cheetah brothers are from the front. Notice cheetah have what looks like mascara kind of running down. Anyone know or want to guess what that's for?
Protection?
Good guess. It's a good guess. And in part, it does protect from something. It's an adaptation. Go on.
Reflections like from the sun.
Okay, bravo, excellent. No, you probably have seen how some baseball and football players put blacking under their eyes, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the reason for that is, of course, we know that I played baseball myself, and the glare on the top of your cheeks can be make you squint. This is nature's. Cheetah are among the few cats that hunt during the day. They're daytime hunters, and this is their special adaptation to sort of reduce glare, which kind of cool, kind of neat. This is a shot. Obviously, giraffe are very shy and a little bit curious. Sometimes you can approach them, and they will wait until you get to a certain distance away, and then they'll scamper a bit. but quite beautiful. This shot worked in a way because of the drama of there was a forest fire. It's perfectly normal part of life in Kenya. So it kind of added a bit of lighting drama to this giraffe. Still Kenya. And oops, sorry, this is out of order. This is not my Kenya and Uganda story. This is a story, a Washington Post story from another very hot place, Bangkok. Anyone been to Thailand?
Yes.
You guys have been everywhere.
Yeah.
Just
Everywhere.
Evelyn.
Sorry?
Just Evelyn's been everywhere.
I've done several of these too.
Oh, great. It's, as you know, so super friendly people, gentle people, great food. And I thought I always like to try to focus a story on some aspect of a destination that hasn't been written about too often. Okay. So in this case, the focus was on the adventures of my wife. This is Kathy, and one of my best friends, Kevin, having clothing made in about
Wow.
30 hours. And that's as you know, in Singapore and Bangkok, that's a thing that they specialize in. So that turned out to be a good focus because we had all sorts of strange misadventures, but it all worked out. Kevin never uses his tuxedo, but for a long time, Kathy was quite pleased to have a Washington Post staff photographer come shoot her. That was her moment as a model with her traditional dress. So we're getting closer to the end. I know we're running over. Is that a problem?
Not at all.
Okay.
Not at all.
Okay. So this is a destination that you can probably guess. It's in the news the last couple of days.
Cuba.
So say it again.
Cuba.
Cuba is where we are. Cuba's in the news because they're having quite a bit of unrest. I'm guessing that a number of you have probably already been. Have you?
Yes.
Of course you have. Of course, I've yet to find a place that you haven't been, but that's fine. So I bet you can guess, and not every group does, what these women here are selling to these tourists.
Cigars?
Nope.
Flowers?
Nope. They are simply selling the photograph. They are simply allowing themselves to be photographed posing, and then you're supposed to give them some money. And I'm a journalist, so I thought, well, guess what? I'm just going to take this shot and move on. I didn't bargain for this dude right here. Want to guess what his job was?
Get the money.
Make sure you did.
Yeah, get the money. He was the enforcer. So I had a very unpleasant 20-minute chase through the streets of Havana. This guy trying to get me to ante up. I finally lost him. And if those of you who've been to Cuba know that it is a photographer's paradise. The colors are stunning. People are quite friendly. Of course, the famous classic American cars. This is a particularly beautiful Plymouth. Some of the stuff, we hear about the Miami condo collapse. Cuba has many, many buildings that have not been shored up and that are, of course, at the mercy of the same kind of salt and wind that any building in that area is. But
And all owned by the government.
Yep. And you can see how it's quite a beautiful, the colors are beautiful. And in many ways, I'm a low tech kind of person. I actually enjoyed being in a country where when I was there, cell phones were not prevalent, very rare. Okay. And to me, it was a great relief hearing people listening to transistor radios while they walked along the shore. Okay. It's just like going back in time. I would go into a bar and there'd be a black and white TV on showing a baseball game. Now that's about the degree of technology I like. Cuban Girl Scouts with one of the passengers on my trip. very friendly. A lot of Cubans, when I was there, still had little phrase guides, little English, Spanish phrase guides, so they're very interested in learning, trying to learn English, and interested in talking with us. So quick change of venue, and I don't want to leave it out. Anyone ever gone to, many people travel to China these days. Anyone been to Japan?
Yep. Yes.
Oh, great. Of course you have. Of course you have. A lot of people are not going there lately, and I don't know why, but well, they're having some trouble with COVID right now, with the Olympics coming up, but it's an experience. This guy just, the rickshaw driver, was posing for me. I did a story for the Washington Post in which it was cool. It was a lot of work. It was a lot of hiking. I was with a group that hiked from Kyoto to Tokyo through using an old path that shogun used to use, and merchants in the old days before there were roads and cars. The old travelers back in the old days would use paths like the one I was on, and wear straw sandals and straw hats. It's quite mountainous. The path, anyone can do this. It's well-maintained path. Some of it's got some altitude to it. Lots of forest. The Nakasendo Way is what it's called. Has anyone done this hike? Aha, finally. Finally, here we are.
David didn't do it, Evelyn?
Sorry?
I didn't do that. I took the train.
Oh, you took the train. That counts. Good enough. I should have taken the train. I would have saved my feet from many blisters. But so here I am with the group hiking through a forest. If you've ever been in a forest of bamboo, wow. It's a beautiful experience. The wind makes the trees click, 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 click together. And of course, we all know bamboo grows like crazy. So Lord knows, how you can stop the forest from taking over the rest of Japan, but that's their problem.
Yeah.
Along the way, there are all these ancient temples that were wayside stations for the foot travelers of many centuries. And these are Shinto shrines. The people, the locals, would put honorary kerchiefs on the statues. This is not blood. This is some honorary, this is a Shinto deity. And I was told by the guide, at least, this is not the sign of some bloody mugging or anything like that. This is an honorary thing. Here we are looking at, some of us looking at snow-capped mountains near Fuji. And, if you it sounds like some of you have been to Japan. I just love this picture of the little girl holding hands. That it's so refreshing in so many ways. The sort of courtesy, I don't know, I'm not going to explain this as well as I should, but we live, of course, we Westerners live in a very grab what you can get kind of world. Whereas when you go to a place like Japan, you are suddenly injected into a very old culture where people don't walk out of a room or a train car by turning their back and just leaving. They walk out backwards while they bow. Okay? Think of that. Think how different. And I had the totally wrong impression. Back in the 70s, and early 80s, Japan was our big economic competitor, and people were always showing photos of, people jamming Tokyo subways and being pushed in there and all of that. Instead, you are injected into this very courteous, deeply courteous culture where there are all these rituals and rules, and white gloves are still worn. Cab drivers wear them. How about? Worth considering. Okay, last stretch here. You guys have made it this far. Now we are at the bottom of the world. You've seen the Arctic. Now see Antarctica and started being a tourist destination in the late 60s. Anyone go yet?
Yep.
Yes?
Yes, I did.
Evelyn.
You have gone?
Yeah, Evelyn, I have gone.
Okay. You can both fly there and fly over it now, or take a ship like I did from Chile, or Argentina or Chile. My ship, I was lucky to I did a piece for the Boston Globe, and the ship left from Ushuaia, Argentina, which bills itself as the world's southernmost city. And you have to cross some very rough waters. It looks quite calm here, but I've been on a lot of ships in my life. This is the only ship that the crew would come through the ship periodically and rope all the furniture and chairs so they wouldn't fly around during the worst storms. Sitting in the dining room a few times, the ship was heeling so badly that you could actually see briefly underwater. The big picture window in the dining room was briefly underwater. So needless to say, everybody pretty much got sick. Here's a view from up high looking at when you're first getting close to the Antarctic Peninsula. Notice we have our parkas, different brand of parka. I was with Lindblad, which is associated with National Geographic, and they were the first, they're a Swedish cruise line, the first to sail passengers to Antarctica. And here you see this is my postcard photo, the elephant seal. And notice, remember I mentioned up at the beginning, when you're on an adventure cruise, you're not just on the ship, you're landing constantly on shore. And these are crew members who take passengers on a inflatable Zodiac, and they're setting up, they let me come a little early so I could photograph them. Here they're setting up a little landing place for passengers so we could walk around and meet the local seals, etc. Notice the icebergs out there. There's actually a place, this is an up close and personal with one of the elephant seals. Very friendly. It's like being in the Galapagos. Because they're so unused to tourists, they'll let you, wander around, come up to them, pat them. You're not supposed to, and we didn't, but looks like this guy actually must have been drinking some milk or something, having a little bit of a digestion problem. At one point, our captain was kind enough to sail our ship into a snowy and icy bay, so we could have the great experience of disembarking and walking around our own ship. What had to happen? I always ask this: what had to happen first before we passengers were allowed to disembark and walk around our ship?
Weight check, ice check.
Say it again.
Ice check, weight check.
Right. Very good. Ice check had to happen, and I thought, well, they're going to have some ice. They're going to have some high-tech way of testing the thickness of the ice, right? Wrong. They lowered crew members over the edge from the deck with a rope around their waist with bamboo poles, who then pounded on the ice all the way around. And so it was perfectly thick. It's freezing down there. So we got to play a little ice soccer down there. And so that was fun. I used black and white film because I thought it would make for a nice photo. And here is one of the locals, King Penguin. These guys, I thought I might see like a handful of penguins, a smattering of penguins. You land in places in Antarctica where there are literally 30,000 penguins, 40,000 penguins. Do penguins smell good?
Probably not.
They do not smell good.
Not at all.
They probably think we don't smell good too. But there was a time of year when mommy penguins were coming back. They go hunting, and often daddy penguins sit on the eggs.
Mhm.
Mommy penguins were coming back, and believe it or not, there's a special whistle that each baby penguin has a separate certain note that mommy's supposed to be able to find her own family. So as we waddled around in our parkas, we had the great experience of baby penguins coming up to us whistling, thinking we were mommy, which as far as I know, we weren't. Quickly, I'll just finish up with a few newspaper shots. I don't know if anyone's ever done this. For the Washington Post, I went across country by Greyhound bus from Washington, D.C. to L.A. Took 4 days the way I did it. Anyone done that?
Mhm.
No,
I
couldn't.
recommend it. I would not. Once, because I'm always trying to find different ways to write about travel for the Globe here, I got an editor to let me hike a strip mall. Why would you do that? My wife asked.
Yeah.
And I said, well, it's there. And as it turned out, strip malls have their own weird landscaping. So I treated the weird landscaping of a strip mall like it was a forest trail walked through to get coffee at a drive-through, etc., to try to milk some humor out of it. And last but not least, for a story for the Washington Post, I decided I was doing a lot of behind the scenes stories, and I decided if I could get tried, finally got an amusement park to allow me to train and suit up for a day in the suit of Patrick Starfish. So that is yours truly. That's me. I did not get to be SpongeBob. Why? Because SpongeBob has to be under 5 feet tall. So Patrick was it. And I can tell you, I brought a little mini thermometer, and it was 108 degrees
Oh.
Oof.
Patrick's suit, and the Patrick's eyes fog up. This was Kings Dominion amusement park in Richmond, Virginia. It was humid. I could literally barely see. Meanwhile, kids are, I hate to tell you, but they are snapping. I had some like pantaloons on, and the kids are pulling your pantaloons. One kid sucker punched me. Finally, as you know, I was just starting to get used to it. I was pushed and pushed and pushed into a. There are always handlers. You may not know this. When you're in an amusement park and you're seeing a Mickey Mouse bouncing around or something, nearby are people who look like tourists, but they're actually watching to be sure you don't go out of character, and they're gonna push you into a suiting up shack if you do anything weird. Or in my case, it started to rain, so they started pushing me. I'm like, why are you pushing me? I'm starting to like this. They pushed me into a suiting up shack, and I'm like, I don't want to go in here. And it turns out that in the rain, Patrick and SpongeBob start running. Their colors start running. So that was the end of my day, guys. It's been a wild ride, and I'm sorry to move so quickly, but I want
It was fantastic.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You guys are a fun group partly because you've been everywhere, and rather than that not being fun, I love it because that way it's fun for me to hear your comments.
You have to come back, Peter.
Maybe I'll come back in person someday.
Wouldn't
That
that
would be lovely.
Yeah, that would
Yeah.
be fun. And
Yes.
I actually think, New Haven, which is near you, Providence, by the way, where we live, is quite a nice city if you haven't been, with a lot of history. And New Haven actually has quite a lot of good stuff. I really like it. So.
Yep.
New Haven's a great town.
Yep.
Yeah, it is, and getting better and better. Yale's really worked hard, I think, around the area and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyway, any questions?
No, thank you, Peter.
My pleasure.
Did a great job. We loved your pictures.
Yes.
Say it again.
You did a great job. We loved your
Oh,
pictures.
thank you. I really appreciate that. If you meet any other librarians or, people who run venues, always happy to do the talk because it's a way for me to relive some of this. So
Mhm.
thank you again. And Nancy, I appreciate the chance to do it.
Thank you, Peter. I definitely will spread the word. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Thanks,
Have a good
Nancy.
evening.
Nancy.
Take care.
Take
See
care.
you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night. Thanks, Nancy.